On the pole, his 213th race, Patrese for Williams, his 4th career pole position. Joining him on row number 1, teammate Nigel Mansell with his best qualifying spot of the year. 1 here for Frank Williams at 86. Ayrton Senna goes down to row number 2. The first time he's missed being on the front row, you know, since last September. His arch rival, Alain Prost, starts from the 2nd row for Ferrari. Prost has never won in Canada. He has 44 lifetime career wins. Coming off his best finish of the year, 4th at Monaco, Roberto Moreno for Benetton Ford, his best starting spot of the year. Completing the top half dozen is Berger in the 2nd McLaren, 2nd in San Marino. No wins, though, since '89. Jean Alesi has the 2nd Ferrari leading row 4. He comes off his best result of '91, 3rd at Monaco. Nelson Piquet, a 2-time winner here, 3-time world champion, has the 2nd Benetton in the top 8. On to row number 5 for Stefano Modena in the Honda-powered Tyrrell. He was running 2nd in Monaco until he blew his engine. Finishing the top 10 is Pirro in the 1st Dallara. Pirro is just over 2 seconds off the pace of Patrese. In row 6, De Cesaris in the 1st of the Irish green Eddie Jordan cars, the veteran Italian the 11th fastest. He is followed by Satoru Nakajima in the 2nd Tyrrell, recovered from a slow session yesterday to make the top dozen. Doubling up for rows 7 and 8, Capelli in the 1st Leighton House, Gasho Morbidelli and the '89 Canadian champion Thierry Boutsen. 9 and 10 feature the 2nd Dallara of Leto, Martini in the 2nd Minardi, Bernard for Lola, Brundle for Brabham. 11 and 12, Alboreto won here in '85, Hakkinen in the only Lotus, Suzuki for Lola, Gugelmin for Leighton House, and the final row sees the return of Johansson replacing Caffey at Footwork, and Comas of Ligier as the 26th and final qualifier. And Jackie Stewart, the onboard camera with Gerhard Berger for McLaren.
In fact, I see a little peak of yellow in his helmet.
That could be Senna then, if it's
I
the
think
yellow
it
helmet.
is Senna. They've got the camera on there. Ayrton Senna, you can see through the mirror the reflection of his yellow helmet. It's unusual.
Indeed Ayrton Senna as he follows up behind Patrese and Mansell, the Williams on the front row.
It's in fact well known that both Patrese and Mansell are difficult to pass. So for Senna, this is a relatively new experience because he's been in pole so many times that he's had the front of the grid to himself. It'll be interesting to see what occurs here.
Again, the front row. All Williams, Patrese and Mansell. Row number 2, Senna and Prost. Berger and Moreno on row number 3. We await the red light. 4 to 7 seconds later, we'll get the green and we'll be underway in Montreal. Have now lined up after the parade lap at the start-finish area. Here we go. We're underway with a clean start in Montreal. And the 2 Williamses come down into the hairpin at the east end of Ile Notre Dame. And it is Patrese and Mansell. And as we go through, there seem to be no serious problems. Up the back straight, Mansell has taken the lead. Patrese 2nd, followed by Ayrton Senna. So Mansell, who started 2nd on the grid, car number 5, is 1st, followed by his teammate Patrese, then Senna, then Alain Prost.
Well, it's the kind of start you would say from Nigel Mansell, whose adrenaline pumps really hard in a case like this. He's one of the most aggressive drivers. He's putting on the pressure now and, in fact, drawing away from Patrese. Alain Prost left the door open for Senna on the first slow corner here. I think he could have got in there, but he didn't, and that was only the man's making.
So as we come around to complete 1 lap, Patrese, there's Senna, and there is Prost. They're running 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Here's your leader, car number 5, Nigel Mansell. They're through the hairpin at the east end of the island, back down a very fast part of this course. The 2 Jordans, the green cars holding well. Here comes Patrese 2nd, Senna 3rd, Prost is 4th. No, there's Gerhard Berger running in the number 5 position, and here is your leader, Nigel Mansell, who won here in 1986 for Frank Williams. Down through the start-finish area, completing the 1st lap. It is Nigel Mansell leading for Frank Williams, followed by Riccardo Patrese, and Mansell is flying.
He's really pulled it out. Look at the advantage advantage he has. Now the two Ferraris are back to back there. Alesi has come up. He's come in strong, and in fact looks like he's threatening Alain Prost there. High from that helicopter shot.
Yes, indeed. Alesi has passed Berger, so it is Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Prost, Alesi, Berger, Moreno, Piquet, Modena, and Capelli rounding out the top 10. There are the Ferraris of Alain Prost and Jean Alesi running 4th and 5th respectively. A clean yet very exciting start to this 5th race of the 1991 season, the race that many say will see the end of the Senna domination.
Alesi is trying to find a way around his teammate Alain Prost. I think, in fact, Prost may be holding up Alesi just a little bit. Alesi, being a younger driver, is going to be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed at the beginning of the race, whereas Prost is just that little bit more experienced. The two Benetton Fords tucked in behind the two Ferraris. As you can see there, the yellow and green cars as they come through. Prost pulling away just a wee bit there. This is the fastest part of the circuit they're entering now, 300 kilometers down here. Very quick indeed, about 288.
And Jackie, we should explain the sparks for the uninitiated. It's a bumpy course.
They've got titanium strips underneath the cars as Nelson Piquet tries to get it past Roberto Moreno, and he does so. Moreno moves over slightly, so Nelson Piquet, the most experienced driver as far as age is concerned in this race at 38, pulls ahead there, and now he goes towards Alesi to try and see if he can make any effect on him. Surprisingly, Gerhard Berger is fairly far back there in 8th position.
Nigel Mansell, the winner in 1986, leading Riccardo Patrese, Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, and Jean Alesi. That is your top 5 as we are early here in Montreal. Car number 2, there come the two Benetton Fords, Piquet, Moreno, there is Gerhard Berger, and Berger is followed by Moreno. Gerhard Berger, living in the shadows of the great Ayrton Senna, and of course living with rumors that Michael Andretti may be leaving Indy Racing to join Team McLaren in 1992.
That's a good battle back there. The green car is one of the Jordan Ford cars as well. They've been producing themselves an extremely competitive team. This is their first full season in Formula One. To be as far up as that is indeed very impressive. That's up in 10th position already. A little excursion there into the sandpit. Looking at Nigel Mansell, just glancing down at his rear view mirror as he came out of the last corner so that he could see what was happening behind him. Nigel Mansell, living in the Isle of Man at the present time, moving to Florida very soon to be close to his good friend, that great white shark, the Australian golfer. He's, of course, a very keen golfer. Incidentally, I noticed on our screen there that, in fact, Modena had passed Berger, which is pretty impressive. There's Senna. Look how Prost is getting up there behind. Prost is, in fact, closing up on Senna.
Ayrton Prost, car 27, or Ayrton Senna leading car 27, Alain Prost. Prost is all over Senna as we are on board with Alain Prost. Alain Prost comes into the start-finish area. A great shot as he pursues Ayrton Senna.
A fire in the car. The driver is out of the car, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let's fear for him. It looks like one of the Scuderia Italia cars. He's out of there. It's one of the... There he's getting for the fire extinguisher. It's getting to it, doing a good job. That's the LaRousse car. That's the Lola Ford. Getting the fire extinguisher on it. It's very tough. Remember, this car is full of fuel. This is the beginning of it.
By the helmet, Jackie, I would say it's Suzuki and not his teammate Bernard.
Doing a good job to extinguish that fire. No life-threatening situation there. The driver got out of it very quickly, and that, in fact, is fine. Suzuki it is, so he's all right. No concern there as the race continues. No yellow flags here, similar to you see at Indianapolis or any of the kart races. The racing still goes on, apart from the area where the incident occurred, which is just out of the slowest hairpin there. You can see the car parked there. The driver's going through that thick fire extinguishing smoke there. That's our leader, Nigel Mansell.
The fire indeed, the LaRousse of Aguri Suzuki, 30 years of age, born in Japan, lives in Monaco, and again it happens so fast and furious. Really, the only way to identify these drivers is by the colors at the top of the helmet. Now, here is Alain Prost. Alain Prost is all over Ayrton Senna. Prost is fourth. Senna is third. Down through the start finish area. The leaders are the two Williamses, but I'll tell you, Prost is really reeling in. Ayrton Senna and Jackie Stewart, let's stay with this the whole way around, and you take us through.
I think the interesting thing here, his hands on the steering wheel. Remember, he's got an electronic gearbox, two little buttons, one for up and one for down. He doesn't have to take his hands from the steering wheel, but watch the vibrations being kicked back up through that steering wheel. Alain Prost gripping that little steering wheel not too tightly. It's got to be a light touch, yet a firm touch. But you can see the amount of G-force that he's getting back, not only, and he's very close there. Prost now looking for a place to get Senna. One of the most important things here on this circuit is brakes. You can run out of brakes by the end of this race. So, and now, as incidentally, we found out that Gerhard Berger, the teammate of Ayrton Senna, is in the pits. A yellow flag being shown there. That's for the car that was on fire. No obstruction on the track. And there you see how close the Ferrari is to Ayrton Senna as they come on to the fastest part of the circuit. It'll be interesting to see if the Ferrari is any faster than the Honda on the straight.
Back to that great shot from the onboard camera into the start-finish line. Alain Prost all over Ayrton Senna. It's Nigel Mansell, the race leader, followed by his teammate right there, car number 6, Ricardo Patrese. Senna third, Prost fourth, Alesi fifth, Piquet is 6th, Moreno is 7th, Modena for Ken Tyrrell 8th, Andrea de Cesare Spredi, Jordan 9th, and Gasho is 10th as we run down the top 10 after 5 laps here in Montreal. A very, very exciting start to this race. I'm not sure whether Senna is playing with Prost. Every time Prost comes too close, it seems that Senna just gooses it a bit and pulls away.
It is interesting to recognize that, no doubt, Ayrton Senna is losing on the braking distance, and it may well be that Prost just using up a little more brake than Senna is. Senna knows that, and I know that from the McLaren people, they're worried about brake wear towards the end of this race. However, the pace is still fast and furious. They are not very far behind the car of Patrese, although Nigel Mansell has pulled out quite a cushion.
See now, Jackie, he begins to pull away on the straight accelerating area. And boy, you're right on when you say Prost reels him in under braking.
It could be, you know, every race car and driver has one part of the circuit where they are a little better at than other parts of the circuit. A driver's car will be well balanced in one quarter of the racetrack, while in another part of the racetrack it may not just be on form. It's a complete compromise when you're balancing the car.
A tremendous battle for third place. You're looking at the rear of Ayrton Senna. Down at the west end, up to the north end, the north side of Ile Notre Dame, facing downtown Montreal. There's Senna, he's third. Prost is fourth, and the young Jean Alesi running in the number 5 position for Ferrari.
It also seems that Prost is a little faster on the slower parts of the circuit. The slow corners, he seems to be able to get much tighter into the McLaren. It may be that his car is just getting more mechanical bite on the slower parts of the racetrack. And this is sometimes aerodynamics as he looks for a place to perhaps get underneath Ayrton Senna. Senna has never been easy to undertake, and keep in mind, both of those drivers have had little contretemps together. They've run into each other twice now at Suzuka in the second last World Championship round. So they'll be very sensitive about getting inside each other under braking.
And as we look at Ayrton Senna, he is followed by Alain Prost, and we are now on board with Ayrton Senna. We're on board with Senna, who is running third. Look, he can't even see Patrese, who is second. Patrese second to his teammate Mansell. Now we're with Prost behind Senna. So we were with Senna. Now we go back to Prost for some tremendous camera work here down through the start-finish area. On board with Alain Prost. Little turn to the left. Then the right hairpin turn. There's Alesi, who is right behind Prost and coming up onto the north side of Ile Notre Dame. It is Alain Prost all over Ayrton Senna.
And Alesi is maybe intelligently sitting back just a wee bit, because if these two do come together under braking and something goes wrong, unless he's going to have the room to negotiate to get through. That's quite important.
There is Patrese, who is running second. Senna, Prost, and then Alese just coming into the picture. Ferrari, of course, has not won here in Montreal since Michele Alboreto in 1985. And those great Italian fans are out here in force today. I've seen them from Calgary, Winnipeg, Toronto. They're here from everywhere. On board with Alain Prost again as he pursues Ayrton Senna. Senna trying to make it 5 wins in a row. Said at a news conference earlier this week, no one is unbeatable. I have to realize I will be beaten in the very near future. Patrese is second. There is Senna running third. Prost running fourth. Jean Alesi running fifth. Let me run down the rest of the top 10 for you in just a minute as they combine the start-finish area. It's still Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Prost, and Alesi in the top 5. Piquet is running in the number 6 position. Moreno for Benetton Ford. Piquet's teammate is running in the number 7 position. So there you have the top 7 as we have them. De Cesaris, they now show us as 8th. Modena 9th, Gasho is 10th, Capelli 11th, and Thierry Boutsen is 12th. On board with Alain Prost.
Incidentally, Gerhard Berger did go into the pits. He's now out of the pits and back in the race, so he's been having some mechanical trouble. Wretched bad fortune for Gerhard Berger, who so desperately wants to get some success. Never been able to do it for McLaren. Under pressure now by not only McLaren, but the sponsors, the Austrian people, and more importantly, by himself. In fact, Berger is 4 laps down in the whole field, so he had a long pit stop.
As we take a look at the defending world champion, Ayrton Senna, he is pursued by Alain Prost and Jean Alesi. It's Nigel Mansell leading, followed by Patrese, Senna, Prost, Alesi, Piquet, and Moreno. And into the pits goes Gerhard Berger, who is indeed finished for the day. Berger actually last year had the fastest time in this race, but was penalized 1 minute for jumping the start and ended up finishing in the number 4 position. As we look at Ayrton Senna spin out one of the
Moreno
Benettons. It is Moreno with the yellow helmet. Now Moreno was running in the number 7 position. His teammate for Benetton Ford, Piquet, 6th.
Having trouble getting into reverse gear, waiting for the marshals to tell them what to do. The marshal's very active. There he's spinning it round, getting it back on the road. That's a popular place to spin, actually. But my goodness, he was lucky to get that car restarted. He kept the engine running. When those engines are very hot, they're very difficult to fire up again. But look what's happened here. I think it's an amazing gap now. Senna's opened up. Or has Prost passed?
Now we're going to stay with this. There comes Senna.
Prost,
and there is Alesi. Prost must be out of the race. There is Alain Prost. Prost has now fallen down 2 positions. There is Jean Alesi. So Alesi has moved up. Prost has dropped back. There is one of the Tyrrell cars, and that is Nakajima, Satoru Nakajima, car number 3.
He got it on the curb, he's got it off the curb, he's hit the wall, both wheels have hit the wall, not just a kiss, quite a heavy one. He held it against the wall, the correct thing to do, rather than bounce back on to the cars following him. But we'll have to now trace the situation of Alain Prost. We can't find him, he hasn't come through. Where is he?
He is well back in the
Here he
field.
is.
There he goes. So Prost has dropped back 2 positions. There's Alesi, there is Piquet, and there is Prost. So something may be wrong with Alain Prost's car. Maybe he was pushing it too hard, Jackie.
Well, maybe some of the incident that we saw there a little while ago, there's still the contact of that wall that you saw earlier. It may be they got involved in some of that stuff. He may just have made a mistake. Jean Alesi now, the young tiger, in many ways, I would see Alesi away in the shadow in a sort of talent-wise of Gilles Villeneuve. He's very exciting to watch and drive. And if there's any driver that I would compare him with in years gone past, it would be Gilles Villeneuve. So let's keep our eye on Alesi, although he is indeed under pressure from Piquet.
And there we look at Jean Alesi running in the number 4 position. The leader is Nigel Mansell, followed by Patrese, Senna, and Alesi. Into the pits comes Modena. Our coverage of the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada live on Sports Weekend will continue right after this.
Deep in the woods of Canada.
Done.
And on a Sunday afternoon in Montreal with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart, Barry Gill, I'm Brian Williams. It's Nigel Mansell, followed by Ricardo Patrese and Ayrton Senna. Jean Alesi, there he is. Car 28 for Ferrari is 4th, followed by former world champion and Canadian champion Nelson Piquet. Alain Prost has now dropped down to the number. Prost is running 6th. Modena is running 7th for Ken Tyrrell. Andrea de Cesaris is running 8th for Jordan. Gasho is running 9th, and Ivan Capelli is in the number 10 position. Pretty good story for Jordan with Gasho and de Cesaris both in the top 10.
Yeah, it's not unexpected because I think they've done a very good job as we look down from our helicopter shot. Now we're getting more towards the ground. That, of course, is our second place runner, followed by, well, Alesi there in 4th place.
This is Jean Alesi running in the number 4 position, pursued by Nelson Piquet. Jean Alesi, 26 years of age, appears to be pulling away now from Piquet. Alain Prost has dropped down to the number 6 position, down through the start finish area. In front of this large crowd comes the young Frenchman driving for Ferrari, the young man that Jackie Stewart says reminds him an awful lot of Gilles Villeneuve, who of course drove car number 27 for Ferrari, the number being driven today by Alain Prost.
Nelson Piquet, winner of the World Championship 3 times, enormously experienced, now stalking the young driver with relatively no experience in the big time of Grand Prix motor racing. Piquet from Brazil, yet another Brazilian driver. There's a whole gaggle of them now in Grand Prix motor racing. I keep telling everybody it's not that the beans that they're eating down there in Brazil. They've just got a very good program to bring things together, as we see another incident occurring, and it's one of the Jordan cars doing a very complete pirouette and being avoided well by everyone concerned. No contact there by any of the drivers, well handled by them all, anticipating the move of the Jordan car. That type of anticipation is absolutely vital. As the car comes towards us now, the Ferrari, you can see, has stretched out that lead a little bit from Nelson Piquet. Alesi, a very angry young man in a racing car from time to time. He's very forceful, uses this natural talent all of the time. It'll take him 2 more years to mature as a driver as Ayrton Senna passes through. There you see Piquet in the yellow car. There is Alain Prost trying to make up the ground that we can't account for at the present time. We don't know what occurred, but he certainly had trouble. I
understand he may have hit some dirt, slowed down for some dirt on the north side of the island. Alesi is 4th, followed by Piquet and Alain Prost. You saw the Jordan spin. That was the Jordan of Bertrand Gachot, the 28-year-old. It was not Andrea de Cesaris. Jean Alesi, the word is he will win, and he will win in the very near future. Ferrari has not won here in Montreal since Michele Alboreto in 1985. Of course, the first ever race held on this circuit was in 1978, and it was won by the late Gilles Villeneuve.
Well, this racetrack today is very hot. Just before the start of the race, we got the track temperature at 38 degrees centigrade. They thought it would go up to 40 degrees centigrade. Of course, that at the moment is about 100 degrees on the 38 degrees centigrade mark if you convert it over to Fahrenheit. Tire wear is not a problem here. They resurfaced this track. There's not a lot of grip, which means that if the car slides a lot, they build up the temperature in the tire. That would produce blisters in the tire, and that's the only thing that worries Goodyear and Pirelli, both of those makers supplying the tires. Goodyear, just for your information, bring about 2,000 tires to each Grand Prix with them, and Pirelli, in fact, will probably bring more options with them.
There is Jean Alesi, currently running in the number 4 position. If you're just joining us on this Sunday afternoon through 15 laps, Nigel Mansell leads, followed by Riccardo Patrese, Ayrton Senna, Jean Alesi, Nelson Piquet, Alain Prost, Modena, De Cesaris, Capelli, and Boutsen rounding out the top 10. And as I say, it was Gasho that spun for Jordan, so he has dropped from 10th down to the number 13 position. Thierry Boutsen is now running 10th for Ligier. Of course, Thierry Boutsen won this race 2 years ago for Frank Williams. Ayrton Senna is followed by Alesi, and there is the Jordan car of Gasho in the pits. Jordan, an amazing story in Formula One racing. He's back out.
Well, the reason he's come into the pits is that when he spun, he would have flattened his tires. When you put the brakes on and you spin, you take the top off the tire that's being in contact with Mother Earth, and the tire is no longer round, so you get a terrible vibration. So he came in to change those tires and therefore have a more competitive car.
If we can stay with this battle, Piquet and Jean Alesi. There's Jean Alesi. You mentioned that he reminds you of Gilles Villeneuve. To this day, the Alesi family has a picture of Villeneuve in their home in southern France. There's no question that Gilles Villeneuve, as we look at Senna going up on the north side of the island, Senna, who is running third, is pursued by Jean Alesi. There's no question that Villeneuve was Alesi's hero. On board with Ayrton Senna, and look, he can't even see Riccardo Patrese, who is in the number 2 position. So Patrese, as we look at the stats, has nearly an 8-second lead over this man, 4-time winner Ayrton Senna. There's Jean Alesi, but again, there's that great love and admiration for Villeneuve on the part of Alesi.
Absolutely, a much admired driver around the world was Gilles Villeneuve. Ayrton Senna, you saw him incidentally with the on-car camera there, and here we have the car again of Senna. Look at his hands leaving the steering wheel to change gear. Per lap around this racetrack, as we look down from the helicopter, Senna will change gear 46 times each lap, and you can see the hand having to leave the steering wheel, whereas the Williams cars and the Ferraris have electronic gear shifting where they don't have to take their hands from the steering wheel. So from a driver's point of view, there's less work to do.
Stay with us. Live coverage of the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada will continue. It's Mansell, Patrese, Senna, Alesi, and Piquet rounding out the top 5.
We all like to...
As we look down on Ile Notre Dame in Montreal on this sunny, beautiful Sunday afternoon, it's Nigel Mansell, followed by Patrese, Senna, Alesi, Piquet, and Prost, rounding out the top 6. There is Jean Alesi, currently running in the number 4 position. Now, Ayrton Senna from McLaren is running third. A man that's been under a lot of pressure this year is his teammate Gerhard Berger. Berger is out of the race. Let's go down to the pits and find out why from Barry Gill. Barry?
Well, I'm afraid that Canada once again has been unkind to the Austrian Gerhard Berger. He is out of this race with engine problems, and that for Honda, of course, is very rare indeed. Another man who's had a problem is the world sports car champion, Martin Brundle. One of those strange, silly things that happens in motor racing. Brundle in the problem has had a long time in the pits with, would you believe, a broken gear lever. Back to you, Jackie and Brian.
All right, Barry, as we look at Berger's teammate, Ayrton Senna, there's Alesi, followed by Nelson Piquet. Let me ask you something as we take a look at Senna, Jackie Stewart. Berger appears to be a frustrated man. Ron Dennis was at the Indy 500. We keep hearing the reports that Michael Andretti will leave CART and join McLaren in 1992. What do you make of it?
Well, it is pressure on Berger. On Thursday and Friday of next week, Michael Andretti is going to Magny-Cours, where the French Grand Prix will be run this year, to test for McLaren. Ironically, the driver he will be going to test with is Gerhard Berger, who he potentially is likely to replace. So the politics in motor racing obviously are very agitating now for that young Austrian. he's really under a great deal of pressure. And here he is sitting in the pits worrying whether he wants to be driving for this team next year, because after all, he's still going to be faced with having to try and beat his own teammate, who happens to be the best driver in the world. But for Michael Andretti, this would be an immense opportunity to come to the most competitive team in Formula One racing today, and to come in at such a high level with them for American motorsport as it would be for international motorsport. So I would look forward to that happening.
And of course, if it does, producer Lawrence Kimber pointing out, the name Andretti carries tremendous marquee value in Europe. There is Ayrton Senna, followed by Jean Alesi. They are third and fourth, respectively. Here is our race leader from the Isle of Man, Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell now leading by 6 seconds over his pole-sitting teammate, Riccardo Patrese. We are through 20 of 69 laps here on Ile Notre Dame this afternoon. We are just about to the 1/3 portion of this race.
One small criticism I would offer about Nigel, I noticed him doing it just a few moments ago. He has a tendency to use curbs a little bit. If you use them too often, you can hook up round a curve and cause yourself a fair amount of trouble. In fact, he had a very big accident in Japan a few years ago by hooking up on a curb. And if those curves are becoming higher and higher to discourage drivers from using them, and if that happens for Nigel, it's a trouble. There's a car stopped on the racetrack right now, the yellow flag. It looks like Senna now being very mature about where he tries to pass other cars. This is not something that he used to do particularly well, and he had a lot of trouble over the years. A clean pass there as he goes into the hairpin. Gugelmin moving over for him.
Maurizio Gugelmin running in 18th position in the Leighton House, so he has now been lapped by Ayrton Senna. Leighton House with the Ilmor engines. There is car 28, Jean Alesi. Alesi will now have to go by first the Brabham of Martin Brundle, and then Maurizio Gugelmin as he tries to get back up to Ayrton Senna. The two slower cars now holding up Alesi. There's Alesi through the start-finish area, running in the number 4 position. Again, it's Mansell leading, followed by Patrese, Senna, Alesi, Piquet, Prost, Modena, Capelli, De Cesaris, and now J.J. Leto has moved into the number 10 position. Ferrari has not won here, as I said, since 1985 with Michele Alboreto. The Canadian Grand Prix first started back in 1967 at Mosport in Ontario, and since then Ferrari has won on 5 different occasions. McLaren is the winner leader, or the leading winner, with 6, but Ferrari has won 5 races, including, of course, Villeneuve in 1978, the first race here on Ile Notre Dame.
Now with the hold up behind Gugelmin there, in fact, Piquet has closed up on the car, and Alesi, and look at Alesi gets through there. That's Prost going through. That's him passing Emilio Priro, and here's got a white car. That could be a Brabham, or it could be one of the, that looks like a Brabham.
It's either a Brabham or a Lotus. It's
Hakkinen.
the Lotus.
Hakkinen.
It's the only Lotus in the race. Hakkinen. Johnny Herbert did not qualify. Johnny Herbert was here replacing Julian Bailey, so they started only one Lotus. Mika Hakkinen, the driver, 22 years of age, lives in Helsinki, spins coming into the start-finish area.
And he's out of the car. He obviously had a moment right through that gravel pit. Look at the car taking off, up on 2 wheels. Hakkinen fighting it, gets into opposite locks, slides the car along the road surface there. That gravel pit is introduced, and there is Mika Hakkinen from Finland, dejected, because he would like very much that car to have finished this motor race. Very important for him in his young career right now, and for Lotus, who are in danger of financially not making it in motor racing today. A great legacy from the Colin Chapman days, this great name of Lotus. Let's hope they continue.
Let's hope they continue indeed. There is Alain Prost off his car 24. That's Morbidelli from Minardi. There's car 27, Alain Prost, and Prost is in the number 6 position in the pits, one of the Jordans. I believe that would be It looks like the Cesaris. We'll wait till we get a look at the windows or the mirrors. It is the Cesaris, and Brea de Cesaris very hard. It's interesting, Ken Tiro pointing out de Cesaris has red rear-view mirrors, and his teammate Gasho has the green rear-view mirrors. There's Jean Alesi for Ferrari. Alesi running in the number 4 position. Now, from 24 laps here on Ile Notre Dame, it's a 69-lap Canadian Grand Prix. You see the yellow flag as the Lotus had spun. Down through the start-finish area comes the young Frenchman for Ferrari, followed by Nelson Piquet, a 3-time world champion and 2-time Canadian champion. Alain Prost has now moved up right behind Piquet. Prost now starting to come back, and again, it's still now Mansell leading by 7 seconds over Patrese, and then it's another 8 seconds from Patrese back to Ayrton Senna, who is running 3rd.
Patrese, although we're looking at the Ferrari right now, Patrese's been going through a great deal of pain with his neck. I noticed just before the race started getting Novocaine sprayed on it and getting massage because his neck has been hurting him very bad after quite a serious accident he had with serious contact with the wall on Friday. Nelson Piquet, the Brazilian, 3-time world champion, very cool. And there you see the doctor's car going round there and a white flag being waved. You can see the car of the Ferrari there being driven by, that must be the car of Alain Prost, but it could be Alesi.
No, that is Alain Prost as he pursues Nelson Piquet. That is Piquet pulling away from Prost. Mansell is first, followed by Patrese, Senna 3rd, Alesi 4th, Piquet is 5th, and Alain Prost, there's Alesi 4th. We'll see Piquet running 5th. There he is, and Prost is now running in the number 6 position. Quickly, let's go down to the pits, and here's Barry Gill. Barry?
Well, Roberto Moreno, after that excellent grid position, was unlucky because of that spin. When he spun, he damaged the suspension. I'm afraid that is his race over. But he's still doing enough to prove that he's a great replacement for Nannini. And of course, we all hope to see that young man stand back in motor racing before very long.
And here we go back to the cockpit, to the Ferrari, the prancing horse in the center of that steering wheel. The driver's hands not leaving the steering wheel, because of course he has an electronic gear shift, doesn't have to do a thing with it. Hey, all right! Senna's in trouble. Now a big battle going on side by side going in here. Ayrton Senna's in trouble, and there Alesi's in trouble, and Piquet looks like he's passed both of the Ferraris. Nelson Piquet has leapfrogged.
And now Prost is trying to go by Jean Alesi. There is Nelson Piquet. That's Piquet in front of Prost. You're on board with Alain Prost. It appears Ayrton Senna was off the track on the north side of the island. Barry Gill is in the pits.
There he is going slowly. He's got a mechanical problem. This is looking in at Ayrton Senna. He's going along there gently now in the car camera. He's had a problem. He's going to try and bring the car back to the pits, but he's in trouble. There's no damage done to the car. Let's have a look and see what's happening here. It's a cautious drive back for him. He's coming up to the slow hairpin. His hand in the air. That's to let the drivers behind know that he's traveling slowly. Remember, there's no brake lights in Formula 1 cars. The picture breaking up there. He put his arm up. That is, in fact, when those cars passed. He switched everything off slowly.
Jackie, the picture breaks up actually when the car goes under the bridge because it's sent up to a helicopter to be transmitted back. Absolutely brilliant camera work by our CBC cameraman here today, picking that up immediately as Ayrton Senna is out of this race. He will not make it 5 in a row. A major development, a major disappointment here. Ayrton Senna receiving a tremendous ovation from this big crowd in Montreal, and he acknowledges him. That is Pierre Luigi Martini, car number 23.
So now the order is Nigel Mansell, Patrese, Piquet, Prost, who passed Alesi in that shuffle. So that's the order as they passed our commentary position on that last lap. And there is Nelson having to park the car, and he's going to have a little exercise now because he's going to have to walk home.
Ayrton Senna will have to walk home this afternoon. There's your race leader. That is Nigel Mansell in car number 5. Mansell started from the number 2 position. He now has a 7-second lead over his teammate, Riccardo Patrese. Mansell is pursued by the LaRousse, so he has lapped the LaRousse. Now out of the race, that is Prost. I believe that is 27. It is indeed Alain Prost is out of the race.
I would speculate that he's in gearbox trouble. His head's looking down at the 2 switches on the steering wheel. He's looking down there, and I think that may be out. Piquet is missing also. There's Piquet in the pits. He's left the pits. Piquet's been in for tyres, I suspect.
We're
and here
on
is
board
Prost.
with Prost. He's coming off onto the shoulder, just past the start-finish area, right in front of our broadcast booth, about 100 yards outside the window. Alain Prost revs the engines, and that is all she wrote. It's an amazing story, Jackie Stewart. He is the winningest driver in history, has never won in this country.
And he's made a miscalculation because he's pulled off on the wrong side of the track. He's got no way of getting across, and he's going to have to go and find a bridge. So Alain Prost is now the diminutive Frenchman they call the Professor, a man of average height, as I am, a little fellow in other words, but my goodness, has he been a great driver in his career.
He has indeed. Nigel Mansell is the leader. Nigel Mansell. Jackie Stewart predicted he would win. Out of the race is Ayrton Senna. Out of the race is Alain Prost. So let me give you the standings as the Professor walks back to just a tremendous ovation. The fans are going nuts over there. Right now, the standings, there's your race leader, car number 5, Nigel Mansell, followed by Patrese, so the Williams are running 1-2. Then it is the Ferrari of Alesi third, Piquet for Benetton Ford, and Modena for Ken Tyrrell with a Honda engine up into the number 5 position. Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell has been a bitter disappointment so far this season. Mansell would love to get a victory here as Alain Prost is escorted by the fire marshals across the track. There's Patrese, Ricardo Patrese, who has competed in more Formula One races than any other driver. Started from the pole position, is now running second, and this is interesting, Jackie. Look at this. As we look at Patrese, he's now dropped nearly 11 seconds behind Mansell. Mansell is indeed starting to pull away here today.
Well, I think for Patrese, the answer is here is to finish, because he now is not in a position to catch. And there is Alain Prost, still looking very fresh, still very relaxed, walking back there in ease. We'll be going back to Ferrari to tell them what's going on. They may already know, because he's been on the radio. They're in radio contact with their pit. So I think the way he was looking at the car, it looked to me like it had no rear drive, which would mean that the electronic gearbox, which has been giving a lot of trouble over the years, could again have played up.
As we look down on our race leader, Nigel Mansell, Alain Prost is out of the race, as is Ayrton Senna. Major developments here in Montreal. Stay with us, lots more to come. Our live coverage of the 1991 Grand Prix of Canada will continue on Sports Weekend right after this.
One tough motor oil.
And on a beautiful summer's-like afternoon, Alain Prost is out of the Molson Grand Prix of Canada, as is Ayrton Senna. It has been just a tremendous race here this afternoon. There is the lone Ferrari still in the race, car number 28, that is Jean Alesi. With Jackie Stewart and Barry Gill, I'm Brian Williams. Let me run down the top 10 for you. Alesi is fourth. The race leader is Nigel Mansell, followed by Ricardo Patrese, Nelson Piquet, Jean Alesi, Modena, who is running very, very strong in the number 5 position for Ken Tyrrell. 6th is Capelli. 7th is Lato. Martini is now 8th. Bernard is 9th. And Andrea de Cesaris is running in the number 10 position. As we look at Jean Alesi, let's go down to the pits, and once again we check in with Barry Gill. Barry?
Mickey Hakkinen, what happened?
Well, I came behind the Johansson, behind the arrows on that fast straight, and I came under braking. I already had problems in the race with overheating on the brake. I came under braking and I went to inside, but it's not much grip over there. I went wide and I came over the gravel, and that broke something in the suspension. Otherwise, it was good carry.
But you were okay?
Yeah.
Oh, well, bad luck, and better luck next time, Mickey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, a young man who a lot of people are saying is going to be one of the future champions, certainly one of the young lions. And this, of course, is another young lion that you're looking at, Jean Alesi, who won the European Championship of Formula 3000, driving for Eddie Jordan, who's now running his own Formula One team. But Jean Alesi came up through Formula 3, Formula 3000, and here we have again the helicopter shot. Jean Alesi there pulling away in the red car comfortably. And there you see Nelson Piquet, who incidentally is now in third position. Unusually, the cars have been coming into the pits for tyres. Lee Gogg of Goodyear had told us earlier that he did not expect any tyre stops whatsoever. I don't think it's for wear. I think what's happening is with the high temperature today, and if the track temperature has gone up to 40 degrees as they expected, then they may be blistering a little bit and they're losing their bite. So they're coming in because of lack of grip rather than wearing the tyres out.
It's interesting you mentioned Lee Gogg of Goodyear, the man that supplies hundreds of thousands of racing tires to Formula One during the season. This track has been resurfaced, but Gogg said, surprisingly enough, it's a hard track on brakes, but it's not hard on tires usually.
Not for wear, but because there's not grip around the racetrack, when the wheels spin or when the front end of the car slips, they generate temperature into the tire itself, and that can produce blisters.
There is Stefano Modena, car number 4 for Ken Tyrrell with the Honda engine running in the number 5 position. And oh, would Tyrrell like to have a top 3 finish here in Canada?
Well, I think so too, and since we've got Ken Tyrrell Jr. doing our lap chart sitting beside us right now, Brian, I think he would be quite excited by it too. I, for old time's sake, would love to see Ken, in fact, get on a podium, which is not yet impossible here today, because, of course, Ken Tyrrell brought all 3 of my World Championships. He's now moved from the Ford engine over to the Honda in this particular case, and this is the engine that Ayrton Senna and Berger used last year. This is the V10 Honda engine rather than the V12 engine that the McLaren has now, and he may be quite grateful for that, since the V12, both of those cars are out of the race.
You mentioned Ken Tyrrell Jr., a pilot with British Air. He and his wife Sandy do our lap charts every year here in Montreal, and actually are faster than the computer. Stefano Modena, he is 27 years of age, born in Milan, lives in Monaco, and is running in the number 5 position. Now, this is very important as we look at Modena. There are only 6 cars on the same lap. There is Alesi, he is 4th. Let me run down the top 6 on the same lap. Our 2 leaders from Williams, Mansell and Patrese, Piquet from Benetton Ford, Alesi with Ferrari. Modena is in the number 5 position for Ken Tyrrell, and then Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House is running 6th. Those are the only cars on the same lap here today, and the Leighton House again with that Ilmor engine. There is Jean Alesi as he pursues Piquet.
Well, I think for the tyre story, which is now developing to this race, in fact, I think the whole story is now tyres. Let's go down once more to Barry Gill in the pits. I believe he's had got some information from Goodyear and the very man Lee Gogg.
We could get through this race without changing tyres, but we've had Piquet and we've had Alesi, and there seem to be a few dramas here in the pits. What's the cause?
Well, this track is difficult in that way. It's a very low grip track, even with a new surface. But it's a fast track, so I'm not blaming Ferrari, because everybody tries to find that optimum. They use as little downforce as they can to go fast, but that allows the wheels to spin. And actually what happened here, he didn't wear the tires out, but they blistered for wheel spin. And it's an individual thing. One man that has enough downforce won't blister, the next guy will.
So you have to guess like the rest of us.
On a team, one man will make it, one guy won't. It's almost an individual thing. It's that close, you know.
Lee, thanks for talking to us. Hope we don't have any more dramas.
Me too.
Thank you.
Lee Gogg from Goodyear, who visited us here in the booth yesterday afternoon, Jackie, he was saying that some teams don't have enough power, so they won't use the downforce. Others are using too much downforce, and he says if they don't listen to me, their tires are going to wear out. Explain the difference again for the viewer about too much downforce, not enough, what it does to the tires.
Well, you're looking right now at the Benetton Ford. At the back of the car, you see that big wing there, that blue wing, and at the front of the car, you see these big yellow and white wings also. The front wings, you can angle them up to take an attacking view of the airflow. If those are really very aggressive, and these even more wings, I don't know what's happening here.
That's Patrese is passing Boutsen.
Yeah, I can see that, but this is a replay, and I think you're going to see a little incident here. He gets up on the curb there. Look how hard that leg is up on the curb. But getting back to those brakes, and we now see the other Ferrari driving slowly. Alessi's got his hand in the air. Jean Alesi is in trouble. That takes the pressure off Nelson Piquet and brings Modena now up into 4th position. If this is a problem, is Alesi still running? Has he transmission troubles? Is it more engine troubles? I don't know. He's moved over to one side of the racetrack and going very slowly, hand in the air to let the cars behind know that he's traveling slowly. There'll also be a white flag out there by the marshals, who do a very good job.
All right, with the Alesi going out of the race, let's go very quickly live to Barry Gill. Barry?
Well, Brian and Jackie, some of the most technical things have gone wrong here for Ferrari. I think Jackie will remember when they first ever introduced the pits-to-car radio communication, and poor old Denny Holm, driving at Indianapolis, found that someone was trying to order a taxi to visit Mrs. Jones in 14th Avenue. Well, today the Ferrari team had no communication with Alan Prost. They didn't know what was wrong, but when they actually came in, it was the news they feared the most. It was once again that gearbox. Back to you, Brian and Jackie.
All right, Barry, thank you very much. So the gearbox, Ferrari with communication problems between the pits and the drivers, but it was a gearbox problem as we look at our race leader, Nigel Mansell.
It was a gearbox problem for Alain Prost, but it was an engine problem for Alesi. The smoke that you saw coming out of that engine is probably because he dropped the valve, pulled a piston, and the engine has blown completely. The engine is still firing at all 10 cylinders. For this man, he drives with the Renault engine. That's Nigel Mansell in the Williams car. A very good marriage for Frank Williams to have found Renault to come in. There are 9 major engine manufacturers, and there is Jean Alesi popping himself up on, just having a wee rest before he heads back, a wave to the crowd. Very relaxed man, very French indeed. The marshal's going over to have a word with him.
It is a sad day for the tifosi, the great Italian fans, as Gugelmin pursues Nigel Mansell, but Mansell has just lapped Gugelmin, probably, I guess, for the second time, because Gugelmin is way down in the number 13 position. There is Michele Alboreto. Mansell goes by Alboreto, and Alboreto is just out of the top 10, so Mansell is indeed on a roll. The major story here today, as we look at our race leader, Nigel Mansell, both Ferraris, Prost and Alesi, are out of the race, as are the 2 McLarens of world champion Ayrton Senna and Gerhard Berger. R32 saw, excuse me, Jackie.
No, I was going to say the car, the Arrows footwork car we were looking at, I think was Stefan Johansson, because in fact, if I could just give an update on the cars out of the race right now, it seems that Alboreto was the first car out, Suzuki's out, Berger's out, Morbidelli's out, Häkkinen's out, Blundell is out, then Senna, Prost and Bernard. All of those cars out of the race. The only big incident involved was the fire of Suzuka, and there was no driver involvement in that. Suzuki got out of the fire very comfortably, and there's no injuries in any of those. It's all been mechanical troubles today.
All mechanical troubles and a tremendously exciting race. Stay with us. It's Nigel Mansell leading Patrese, Piquet, Modena, and how about this? Capelli is now 5th. We'll return live to Montreal after this.
Once Canadians...
Welcome back to Ile Notre Dame in Montreal, the Molson Grand Prix of Canada, with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart and Barry Gill. I'm Brian Williams. Hope you're enjoying this car race here today, as Capelli is pursued by J.J. Leto. There's Leto in the red Dallara, preceded by Capelli. Now, let me give you the top 6, because they are the only cars on the same lap. Nigel Mansell, Riccardo Patrese, Nelson Piquet, Modena, then Capelli. Here is Capelli going through now, followed by the red car number 22, the Dallara of J.J. Leto, and just in the distance behind Leto, you saw the race leader, Nigel Mansell. There's the helicopter that gives us those outstanding shots, this one from the west end of Ile Notre Dame. There is Leto in car number 22, running in the number 6 position. Ivan Capelli is running 5th. The race leader is Nigel Mansell. He is coming up to possibly lap Leto right here, standing in the number 6 position.
Well, a story that we really have to look at today, because after all, the McLaren dominance and the story we did, could McLaren ever be beaten? Barry Gill is now in the pits with Ron Dennis, the man who runs McLaren.
Well, I'm with Ron Dennis now, who's been as good enough to talk to us, and he's been winning. And today really hasn't been your day, has it, Ron? What's been going wrong?
It certainly hasn't been our day. We've had what appears to be at this stage electrical problems on both cars. Probably unrelated to each other and just coincidental that it happens here.
You told us at the top of the show that the people who would beat you would be yourselves. Is that one of those days?
Well, it certainly wasn't easy out there, but we were really pacing ourselves, conserving fuel and tyres, with a view to try and push a little bit towards the end, but I don't know how competitive we were.
Well, Mexico's another race, Ron, and thank you very much for talking to us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Ron.
All right, Barry Gill with Ron Dennis. Ivan Capelli and J.J. Leto. Capelli is running 5th, and Leto in the red Dallara. There goes Capelli through in the number 5 position, followed by Leto. I don't think they beat themselves, Jackie Stewart, because when Senna was running and running well, he still was well behind Mansell and Patrese.
Yeah, see, he today, I think, was being faced with a very difficult job in keeping up with the Williams cars and the leaders. There you see the man who had that big accident in Friday's practice, and his neck is unquestionably still uncomfortable. That is Riccardo Patrese. This is his 213th Grand Prix ever. 15 cars in this race are still running out of the 26 that have that started, which suggests there's been a lot of attrition with mechanical problems.
As we look at Nigel Mansell, our race leader, now Mansell is about to lap Leto, car 22, who is running in the number 6 position. But, Jackie, of even greater significance, down through the start for the area comes our race leader, Mansell. Mansell's lead over Patrese, his teammate who's second, is now up to 17 seconds. There's Leto in the red car being passed by Mansell. So now only 5 cars on the same lap. The race leader, Nigel Mansell, has just passed J.J. Leto in the number 22, Dallara Judd, who is in 6th place. So 5 cars on the same lap here in Montreal after 41 of 69 laps. In this 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada, Ivan Capelli is driving car number 16, and there's Capelli right there going into the hairpin of the east end of the island, followed by our race leader Mansell and J.J. Leto.
Well, in fact, it's a good day for Canada. Here we have, and that's another Williams coming into the pits. That's Patrese coming into the pits for a tire change. I suspect he's coming in rather slowly, though. Far too slowly. He's in trouble. He's lifting his visor. The day's over. He's going to close the office.
Unbelievable. Patrese, in a bad accident Friday, who started on the pole today, was running 17 seconds behind Nigel Mansell. Now, Jackie, they are changing the tires. Maybe he is just very, very sore, having some physical problems as he's going back into the race.
Well, I was surprised at the pace that he came into the pits.
Very casual.
Look at his head also, rocking back and forward in the cockpit. I would not be surprised if that young man's getting tired. But there's the man that's now in 2nd position, Nelson Piquet. That would be something. Nelson Piquet now with Nigel Mansell, and only Nigel Mansell ahead of him, but he is in fact 51.9 seconds behind Mansell. Nelson Piquet, a man of considerable experience and knowledge, a very mature driver, knows at what pace to drive. He came in quite early for tyres before the other leaders. Nigel Mansell has not yet been in for tyres, so that could make a big difference. If Nigel Mansell is going to come in for tyres, that could put this man into the lead of this Grand Prix.
And down through the start for the Sharia comes former world champion Nelson Piquet, who won here in Montreal for Brabham in 1982 and again in 84. You might earlier have seen at the side of your screen a McLaren parked as Piquet went by. That was the McLaren of defending world champion Ayrton Senna. If you are just joining us here in Montreal on this Sunday afternoon, just after 3 o'clock Eastern Time, Senna is out of the race. Berger is out of the race. Both Ferraris are out of the race, Prost and Patrese. Let me run down the top 10 for you. Nigel Mansell is first, followed by Nelson Piquet. Stefano Modena for Kenny Tyrrell is now running third. Fourth is Capelli. Fifth is Leto. Patrese has now dropped down to the number 6 position. There's Piquet running second. Running seventh is Andrea de Cesaris. Eighth is Martini. Gasho for Jordan is running ninth. And Comas has gone up to the number 10 position. Big doings here on a very surprising day in Montreal. There is Patrese. Patrese now running in the number 6 position. Ricardo Patrese has driven in more Formula One races than any other driver in history, more than 200, with yet only 3 wins. Still one of the most popular and respected of all drivers.
Well, Ricardo Patrese in lap 44 of 69 will change gear 38 times. And here's Capelli, Ivan Capelli, who was so well placed up there in 4th position. Looks like he's had a major engine failure. That looks like an engine that's gone. Ivan Capelli, the young Italian, stepped out of the car, taking his steering wheel with him. Of course, they can't get in and out those modern racing cars without removing the steering wheel. The cockpit area is so tight as Nigel Mansell, our race leader, who has not yet been in the pits, is driving obviously with great reserve and great cleanness, and that says a great deal for Nigel, because he is by nature quite an aggressive driver, but he obviously is preserving his tires, and he would of course have to come in to the pits. But it's quite interesting just to observe for the moment. Here we are in Canada. You've got a Canadian beer sponsor who sponsors the race. Here the car in first place has also a Canadian beer sponsor. What a day for Canada.
It is a big day for Canada indeed. The leader is Nigel Mansell, followed by Nelson Piquet and Stefano Modena. The only 3 cars on the same lap. Our live coverage of the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada will continue right after this. There's Leto's car out on the side. Actually, Capelli.
And we must look at this all about.
And just a reminder, we will continue our coverage of Formula One racing with the Mexican Grand Prix. That is 2 weeks from today. It will follow late local news because of coverage of U.S. Open golf in the afternoon. Right now, though, we are very much live here in Montreal. There is the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Mansell is first, followed by Piquet and Modena of Tyrrell. Running fourth is J.J. Leto. Ricardo Patrese is now in the number 5 position. And Jackie Stewart, speaking of Patrese, he came into the pits a few minutes ago. We were wondering why. Let's find out from Barry Gill. Barry?
Well, I've just come out of the Williams pits where the Goodyear engineers have been examining Patrese's tyres. This was not tyre wear. This was a deep cut in one of Patrese's tyres. In layman's terms, he had a bad puncture and he just had to come in. And perhaps he was lucky it didn't happen in a very bad place.
There is the camera once again that gives us those great shots right now over the east end, or the west end of Ile Notre Dame, as the Williams car goes up along the north side of the island. That is the Williams of the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Mansell is first, followed by Piquet, Modena, Leto, Patrese, de Cesaris, Martini. Gasho is now running 8th. In the number 9 position is Eric Comas, and Emmanuel Pirro has gone into the number 10 position. Jackie Stewart, only 3 cars are running on the same lap, and again, Senna, Patrese, Berger, and Prost are all out of this race with mechanical problems.
Well, I think one of the stories here, incidentally, is this young Finn, J.J. Leto, who obviously we're not looking at just now, but I might just tell you about him. He's one of the proteges of Keke Rosberg, another Finn, as Häkkinen is a Finn. Finland's produced an awful lot of very good racing drivers, so I think we're going to see a few more. There's another one called Salo, who's very good. I think small countries have a tendency of producing great drivers, apart from the great nation of Brazil, of course, with a big population. Austria, Scotland, Switzerland, Finland, etc. have produced a lot of good race drivers.
And speaking of good race drivers, we are looking at Nigel Mansell. And speaking of where they live, Mansell will move from the Isle of Man to the state of Florida. And the reason is he wants to be near his close friend, Greg Norman. Mansell is a scratch golfer and said, I just want to play some golf in the sunshine.
Well, that's very nice indeed to say that, but it's an awful long way away. And here you see Nigel Mansell getting through the hairpin here. He's following another car. It looks like he's going to get in trouble there. That was a good pass. That's Pirro he's passing there, I think. Emmanuel Pirro, it looks like. That was a tight pass for him. You've got to be very careful when you're coming up to lap other cars, particularly when you're leading a Grand Prix. You assume that they see the blue flags that are being waved to you by the marshals and the commissaires, but you're never sure if the driver has made a slight error by going wide or whether he's really letting you through. So a driver like Mansell, of course, who's had such a lot of experience, is going to be very aware of what those other drivers are doing. Racecraft in itself doesn't come overnight. It's like any other business. You've got to pile up experience. Nigel Mansell is now one of the most experienced drivers in the business.
Nigel Mansell as he pursues Stefano Modena. Modena is running in the number 3 position. We now take a look at car 23. That is Martini, and he is pursued by the Jordan of Gasho or de Cesaris. We can't quite make it out. It is de Cesaris in the pits. In the pits.
That's the Tyrrell.
Is the Tyrrell.
That's the car of Modena, who in fact is lying in 3rd position right now. He's had to come into the pits, a Tyrrell pit stop. They've completed that successfully, and he's now heading out. These pit stops are fast and furious. Patrese has now got himself up, I suspect, back into 3rd position because of that.
That is de Cesaris, who has just passed Pierre Luigi Martini. So de Cesaris passing Martini. De Cesaris in the green Jordan. Martini driving for Minardi. There's car 23 Martini. Martini is 7th. De Cesaris has gone up into the number 6 position. He's in the points.
That's very important for this new fledgling team, and there you see the pass taking place. De Cesaris is a man of considerable experience, has jokingly been called De Crasheris, as he's had a fair number of incidents in his life. In 1 year, he's been reputed to have written off 18 McLarens when he drove for them, which is a record that I, for one, would not like to be emulating.
Jackie, you talked about the importance of finishing in the points. The top 6 drivers get points. That is car 23, Martini for Minardi, who is running 7th, but ahead of him is Andrea de Cesaris. Jordan has no points so far this year. His 2 drivers are Gasho and de Cesaris, so this would indeed be a momentous day for the small laps complete.
This young team I was speaking to just before the race today, I went to have a chat with Eddie Jordan. He's only got 45 people working for him. When you think, for example, that the Benetton team have 160 people and the McLaren team employ 375, some of them, of course, had an electronics division in the same factory. But this little team of Jordan, really only producing 45 people to work on those cars is quite amazing. In the Williams team, there's about 160 people working for Frank Williams. The money in Grand Prix racing is very big today. Nigel Mansell, as a driver, is reputed to be making about $8 million. So the drivers are very well paid. The highest paid driver, of course, is out of the race today, and that's Ayrton Senna. They say between $12 and $15 million a year, and Alain Prost around $12 million a year. So Grand Prix racing drivers are perhaps the highest paid sportsmen in the business today, with the possible exception of the top boxers. But I suspect the drivers don't have the size of entourage that the boxers have.
Here is Patrese. Patrese has now moved up into 3rd place, but is a lap behind his teammate, the leader, Nigel Mansell. So only 2 cars on the same lap, Mansell and Piquet. Here is Patrese, the pole sitter who had the cut in the tire. He is running 3rd.
Keep in mind, however, that Nigel Mansell has not been in the pits, whereas both Piquet and Patrese have been in the pits, and Leto now moves up into 4th position. This is indeed a very good motor race that we're looking at. But now Patrese, in any case, Nigel Mansell has enough in hand to come into the pits very comfortably and be able to get that tyre change without any trouble at being lapped. He's running 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone else on the racetrack right now, so my concern about his neck, I think it was probably a little premature.
Nigel Mansell, here he is in car number 5, leads for Frank Williams. Since 1967, when the Canadian Grand Prix began at Mosport in Ontario, McLaren has 6 victories, Ferrari 5, Williams and Brabham have 4 each. Williams looks like they could make it number 5 here today. Nigel Mansell, the race leader. The car behind him is Johansson in the footwork Porsche, and he is running in number 13 position, so Mansell has just gone by Johansson. Johansson is 2 laps behind the leader. Only 2 cars on the same lap are leader Mansell and Nelson Piquet, car number 6. Mansell's teammate, Ricardo Patrese, running in the number 3 position, is a lap down. Out of the race, Ayrton Senna, Gerhard Berger, Alain Prost, and Jean Alesi, among others, all with mechanical problems. Nelson Piquet, who is running second, is pursuing Martini in the Minardi, who is in the number 8 position, and Piquet does not go by him here, but will within the next little while.
Martini sometimes a little difficult to overtake. He gets slightly excited with a car close behind him. We'll have just now wait and see the mature Piquet choose his spot, and there he goes. Chooses the right spot, a slow corner. No point of being a hero in one of the fast corners, because if anything goes wrong, it's a big accident. Better to have a slow accident if you're going to have a problem. Of course, right now, looking on, it might be interesting to know, and there, unfortunately, looks like...
Leto.
No, Leto was out.
Leto was out of the race. And he was running in 4th. Wow, Leto is out of the race. J.J. Leto, the Finnish driver for Dallara, as they wheel the car out. Here's what happened, Jackie.
He just pulled right off. He had trouble. He knew it. He knocked it into neutral. He's pulled off. I wouldn't leave my car there, actually, because that's the place where last year we had all the trouble in the rain, where so many cars piled up against each other. Never leave your car at the end of an escape road, because somebody's going to shoot up there and hit it.
You remember last year it was Alesi, Nannini, and Boutsen all in spectacular crashes. Here is Nelson Piquet. Piquet is running in the number 2 position. That is J.J. Leto, the young Finnish driver, 25 years of age, lives in Monaco, and he's out of the race. A 2-time Canadian winner, Nelson Piquet, is second. Our race leader is Nigel Mansell. We'll return live to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve on Ile Notre Dame in Montreal right after this.
There's one thing that makes a person attractive. It's not their hair, their face, or their clothes. It's their attitude. Molson Canadian. What beer's all about.
Nur mit Frauen, ist doch klar.
Geht auch. Nein, lass ihn doch, vielleicht mag er keine.
Naja, lass ihn doch.
Helmut!
Steig ein!
Ist das ein deutsches Auto? Nein, Acura.
Presenting the 1992 Bigger. Engineering demanded that only a 5-cylinder engine would be right for this automobile. So we built it. Our latest expression of New World thinking.
Ist das ein deutsches Auto?
Nein. Acura.
Through 53 of a scheduled 69-lap race, it's Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, and Ricardo Patrese with 3-time world champion Jackie Stewart and Barry Gill. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome to Montreal. You are looking at Andrea de Cesaris, who is running in the number 5 position for Jordan Racing. But the big story, Jackie, so far, Senna, Berger, and both Ferraris, Prost and Alesi, are out of this race. But during the commercial break, you had an interesting theory about possible stops.
Well, I think we're going to see Nigel Mansell coming in for tires very soon. He's gone off the pace as far as his lap times are concerned. He's been losing about 2 seconds a lap, for example, careful on Riccardo Patrese, and he's been losing time on Nelson Piquet too. He's left his pit stop to the very last part of this race as far as he's concerned, which gives him a full remaining amount of race time on one set of tyres, whereas Nelson Piquet came in for his tyre change very early in the race by comparison, and it is feasible that Nelson Piquet may have to have one more tyre change depending on the pace of the race. Also, De Cesaris came in for tyres quite early in the race, so it may be interesting here. We'll have to wait and see if Nigel Mansell comes in, but he's got an amazing advantage. It's now down to 53 seconds between him and Nelson Piquet, so we'll have to wait now and see if Nigel Mansell comes in. The other thing that may happen is that Patrese may unlap himself with Mansell, because at the moment Patrese is one lap down on Nigel Mansell. Patrese would like to do that because if something strange occurs, at least he's on the same lap.
Speaking of laps, let's run down the standings as we look at the Jordan. That is actually De Cesaris. That is not Gasho. That is Andrea De Cesaris for Jordan. Let me run down the top 10 cars in this race. Nigel Mansell is our race leader. Nelson Piquet is second. Patrese is third. There is Patrese, car 6. Now he's going by the leader Mansell. He is going to unlap himself, as Jackie Stewart predicted.
Well, he's just finding his way around. Nigel looking at his mirror. You see his head cocking to the side.
There it is, he's passed him.
He just moved over. The Nigel is his own teammate. He moved over. He knows that he's now got at least 1 minute, 27 seconds, I would have thought, at the present pace to be able to cruise round now. Now Nigel will make his decision. Now, he may not have to come in for tyres, Brian, but the situation here is that if you come in for tyres, you always expose yourself to potentially an unnecessary risk. You can sometimes lose the thread on one of the studs going onto the wheel. The car can drop off, as we see now. The arrows coming in, and that's Johansson's car. The Porsche engine has not been a success so far in Grand Prix racing. This new arrows or footwork chassis has also not been a success. That's out of the picture right now, and into the picture comes the success of this Canadian Grand Prix. Certainly both the Williams cars being so dominant in practice and now being so prominent in the race.
It's a 69-lap event. There's your leader, Nigel Mansell. Now he is pursuing his teammate Patrese, who's actually third. There are only 3 cars on the same lap. Mansell, Piquet, and Patrese. As Jackie predicted, Patrese, by passing Mansell, unlapped himself. Down through the start for the Sharia come the Williams.
But I think Nigel Mansell will not come in for tyres. He's only got 13 laps to go, and he's got 50 seconds of advantage. I think he's cooled it off. Now, if he feels that he is vulnerable, he knows that he's got to slow down to come into the pits. He knows that he's got to accelerate out on cold tyres, so it could cost him not just the 6.8 or the 7-second pit stop, it may cost him 25 seconds in total to get in and out of the pits, as well as changing the tyres. So it'll be interesting to see where the strategy is. As he passes, Patrese passes Gugelmin. Nigel's not going with him. Nigel is being very wise not to stick his nose where a front wing could be taken off.
Now Mauricio Gugelmin is running in the number 11 position. There's Patrese. He is actually third on the same lap as the man behind him, the race leader Nigel Mansell. Mansell, Piquet, and Patrese, the only cars on the same lap.
I think the nice thing here also is if we can run down that order, those 2 Williamses are in first and third position right now. Nelson Piquet is in the sandwich. Then we have Modena, and he's driving for Ken Tyrrell, the Honda engine Tyrrell car. Then you have De Cesaris and Gasho, teammates with the Jordan car and the Ford engine. So we've got the Renault, the Ford, the Renault, the Honda, the Ford, which is quite interesting when you see the mix of the big manufacturers who are now involved in Grand Prix racing. And this is a declaration of their technology, that they're making that declaration in front of so many people. We've also got Ferrari, we've also got so many other 9 major manufacturers of engines in this business.
You've had Ferrari, you've had Honda, you've had Renault. For North American fans, it's especially nice to see Ford back in big-time Formula One racing in a big way. Here is Riccardo Patrese running third, your race leader running first. is Nigel Mansell. It's out with technical difficulties. Senna, Berger, Prost, and Patrese. They had a long list, and there is car number 27. That is the Ferrari of Alain Prost that went out some 25 laps ago here in Montreal.
For those sitting at home, just to go over those engine manufacturers just for a moment. Honda, Ferrari, Ford, Renault, Lamborghini, Porsche, Yamaha, and then little-known names, Judd and Ilmore. But my goodness, what a collection of great manufacturers and high...
20, Nelson Piquet, who won here in 82 and 84 for Brabham, then Brabham with BMW engines. So Renault is leading in the car of Nigel Mansell Ford, right behind Nelson Piquet, a three-time world champion, trying to make it 3 wins in Canada. Alain Prost has never won in this country and will not win this year as he is out of the race. The Senna streak has been stopped at 4 as we look at Piquet.
Nelson Piquet's got a lot of pressure on him in a different way. This team, of course, is the United Colors of Benetton. Luciano Benetton and his son Alexandro Benetton are here at this race. Luciano, a tremendous success in the world of business. 7,000 stores around the world, 600 of them in North America. Luciano Benetton, a remarkable man, very fashionable man, very personable and pleasant and shy man. His son just graduated with an MBA from Harvard, just graduating this week, going back to Harvard to pick up his diploma. We all had dinner together last night, and will they be happy? Nelson was at that dinner also. He'll be a happy man.
Speaking of dinner, our executive producer Doug Sellers and I were at an Italian restaurant in Montreal. As we were leaving last night about 9 o'clock, just coming in was Ayrton Senna, and his entourage of 6 or 7 people looked very relaxed and said he was very confident heading into this race today. But with 10 laps to go, the brilliant Brazilian is watching from the sidelines. It's all over for both McLaren and Ferrari, and it has been for some time. De Cesaris, followed by Piquet. De Cesaris is 5th. Piquet is running 2nd and threatening to lap him.
Before Ayrton Senna left Brazil the other day, he went there for a little rest after the last Grand Prix. He made a press statement in Brazil that he thought he would tie up the World Championship very early in the season. I think he will, in fact, be the world champion this year. You can't keep on winning every Grand Prix. He, after all, has done 4 back-to-back. But this is very good. Another Brazilian driving Nelson Piquet. The example shown in Brazil originally by Emerson Fittipaldi, who, of course, went on to even win the World Championship twice, and then the Indianapolis 500. He won that one. Brazil has produced a lot of great drivers. Britain produced a lot of drivers in the past. They haven't been producing so many great drivers for the present, and that's because our industry in Britain has not been supporting our young driver programs. I'm afraid in Canada you will not produce any great new young drivers unless Canadian business supports some of those young drivers to get them overseas and get them participating. This is what makes big-time drivers. The Italians, the French, and the Brazilians commercially support their young drivers. You in Canada have to do it. We in Britain have to do it more. And America has to do it if they want to get young American drivers in the international scene.
And speaking of big-time drivers, with less than 10 laps to go, here is your leader, Nigel Mansell, followed by Nelson Piquet and Ricardo Patrese. Live coverage of the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada will continue on Sports Weekend right after this.
Is warming to a new way of keeping up with both the Joneses and the Dows.
There is Frank Williams, a very happy man as he looks on from his wheelchair in the Williams pit this afternoon. His cars are running 1st and 3rd. Frank Williams, Jackie Stewart. When I first came here to Montreal, there's Patrese, who had the pole. He is running third. Mansell is the leader, followed by Piquet, Patrese, Modena, De Cesaris, Gasho, Martini, Comas, Pirot, Nakajima, rounding out the top 10. Just about 7 laps to go. When I first came here 10 years ago to call this race, Frank Williams jogged with me around this racetrack. Of course, he was involved as we look at Modena, the number 4 car for Ken Tyrrell, running in the number 4 position. He was involved in a terrible accident coming back from testing in France, has been confined to a wheelchair for several years, but is as big a force as ever in this sport.
Oh, he is the man who runs the Williams team. There is no question. His name's above the door. Frank Williams is a brilliant administrator and has run his racing team with enormous success. He sadly is very badly paralyzed now, quadriplegic in fact, but his mind is as sharp as ever, and he really is only very single-minded now about his motor racing. He was a marathon man. He ran marathons, a very fit man he was. And now, unfortunately, many of the frustrations that people who are no longer able to do as they have in the past enjoyed physical sports, as one car is going very slowly.
That's Modena. I believe that is the Tyrrell of Stefano Modena. No, it's not. I'm trying to see. We have a shot here, if we can get the long shot. Our race leader is this man, Nigel Mansell. Mansell leading Piquet, Patrese, Modena, and De Cesaris. As he comes around the west end, or the east end of Ile Notre Dame, that is Nakajima. That is Satoru Nakajima that was slowing down. This is Modena. Modena in the number 4. Ken Tyrrell Honda is running in the number 4 position. Nakajima, car 3 for Ken Tyrrell, is running in the number 10 position. Ken Tyrrell could go into the points here this afternoon.
Well, that would be very nice, because Modena, in fact, should justifiably have been second in the Grand Prix of Monaco, and his engine blew up unexpectedly coming out of, rather just at the end of the tunnel, and caused a lot of consternation for Riccardo Patrese. But I think it would be well justified if he could finish in that 4th position and pick up those World Championship points.
With 6 laps to go, let's run down the top 10. Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet for Benetton Ford, Patrese for Frank Williams, Modena for Ken Tyrrell, De Cesaris for Eddie Jordan, Gasho also for Jordan, Martini in the number 7 position, Comas, Emmanuel Pirot is 9th, Nakajima for Ken Tyrrell is 10th, and for Leighton House in the number 11 position, it is Gugelmin. This is Stefano Modena, young Italian who actually married an Italian princess last year, about to become a father. The Jordans are running, and this is a great story, 5th and 6th. There is Gasho. Gasho is running 6th for Jordan. De Cesaris is running 5th. They have never been in the points. 2 cars could finish here in the points today with 5 laps to go.
He's driving quite hard. He stuck it into a lot of oversteer there, which means that the back end was slipping out at the back. That business about the tires getting very slick round here because of not a lot of grip on the road surface. The yellow and red flag there is to advise people that there's oil on the track. That's an oil flag by the marshals. That's the only communications that the marshals have with the drivers. Eddie Jordan, the Irishman, and it really is an Irish green that you're looking at there. It may well be blamed on the sponsors for having green, but it was green before the sponsors arrived. He's very nationalistic about his Irish background, is Eddie Jordan. He's won the European Championship in Formula 3000. He's won the British Championship in Formula 3. Nigel Mansell, a man who came out of British Formula 3 races, and he's now 47.2 seconds ahead of Nelson Piquet, who has, of course, had a tire stop.
Now, there is car 6, Patrese, running 3rd. There is your leader right behind him. That is Nigel Mansell. Now, Mansell could lap Patrese. Right now, there are only 3 cars on the same lap. The race leader, Mansell, his teammate Piquet, whom he is pursuing, and Nelson Piquet, who is running 2nd for Benetton Ford, Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna, a classy man, both in and out of a race car, gave some very thoughtful and provocative answers at his news conference here earlier this week, out earlier with mechanical problems.
Ayrton Senna, quite interesting watching the motor race. Most Grand Prix drivers, when they drop out of a motor race, Brian, leave. They tend to go away before the crowd catches them to get out of it. He's got his own private jet here, and normally you would have expected a driver of that kind to be able to just leave the circuit, but it's quite interesting that he decided to stay and watch the end of this motor race. Incidentally, Modena is now catching Nelson Piquet quite quickly. Patrese, rather. He's catching Patrese very quickly indeed. That'll be interesting to see what happens there.
There's Patrese, car 6. He's third. There's your race leader, car 5, Nigel Mansell. Mansell, if he chooses to go past Patrese, would mean, if he goes past Patrese, it would mean only 2 cars on the same lap. Your leader here, Mansell. Piquet is second, and Patrese, whom Mansell is pursuing, is third. Senna, Prost, Patrese out of the race along with Berger many laps ago with mechanical problems.
Patrese is definitely losing on Modena. Modena is now within 6 seconds of Patrese, so that could be interesting. Whether he can catch him or not is another matter. It could be that Patrese is getting a little tired, but you can see he's staying pace with Nigel Mansell. There's the man in second place, Nelson Piquet. Lots of experience, lots of maturity. He's got a cool head.
Nelson Piquet being pursued by the Jordan of Andrea de Cesaris, but de Cesaris is more than a lap behind Piquet, running in the number 5 position.
Piquet will probably move over and let the Jordan through. With only 3 laps to go, it would be foolish for him to have to speed up just to keep a car behind him that's in fact a lap down.
3 laps to go in this Molson Canadian Grand Prix of Canada for 1991. And what a day it has been. Nelson Piquet, a 2-time winner here, is pursuing another 2-time winner, Nigel Mansell, who looks like he will make it 3 in Montreal. Down through the start for the Sharia comes car number 20. The Benetton Ford of Nelson Piquet. There's our race leader, and Mansell has just passed his teammate, number 6, Patrese. Patrese is third, so that means only 2 cars. Mansell and Piquet are on the same lap. There's Mansell, your race leader, and behind him, more than a lap down, is the 3rd place car of his teammate, the popular Italian Riccardo Patrese.
It's interesting also that Nelson Piquet has backed off because it's now up to 52 seconds, the lead that Mansell has over Piquet. It was down to 47 with only 2 laps to go. It in fact is now a question of not making mistakes, but it will be interesting to see how Modena gets on with Patrese. That's probably why Patrese is really under pressure here. It'll be interesting to see what happens so close to the end of the race.
Less than 2 laps to go. Nigel Mansell on his way to winning for the 3rd time here in Montreal. Mansell, or I should say the 2nd time, won here in Montreal in 1986. Won in 86 for Williams Honda. There is car number 4. That is Stefano Modena driving the Tyrrell Honda 4 Ken Tyrrell, and he is pursuing the number 3 car of Patrese. This is going to be interesting. Will Ken Tyrrell get a driver on the podium in Montreal?
I think he will, and it's just about to happen now if he just has a little patience. Don't do anything silly, Stefano. He's done it. He's through. I guarantee you that Mr. Patrese has now got very tired, but Modena, young and exuberant as he is, has now done the job. That's very nice indeed. 3 different teams on the podium.
Nigel Mansell is the race leader as he comes down through the start-finish area to begin his final lap. Team owner Frank Williams watches from the pit. Nigel Mansell
in the cockpit. The crowd are getting very excited for him, and you'll see maybe even as he comes down to one of the slower corners, you'll see there's no crowd around this part of the circuit very much. You can hear the crowd cheering already. You might see Nigel giving them a little wave, hello mum, that sort of thing.
Nigel Mansell won for Frank Williams here in 1986. I was talking about winning twice. It's Piquet, of course, that has won twice here in Montreal, both for the Brabham BMW, 82 and 84. Nelson Piquet is running second, but the man of the hour and the man of the day is car 5, the Williams Renault of Nigel Mansell, as he comes around the hairpin at the east end of the island.
He stopped. He stopped. The car
Unbelievable.
stopped.
Modena has gone by him. See him smash the wheel. Frank Williams is watching. Unbelievable. Modena has gone by.
Where's Piquet?
We did not see Piquet. We are waiting for the flag.
Piquet is going to win this motor race if this is it. Piquet is now leading the motor race. Is he leading the motor race? Because he hasn't come through yet.
We are still waiting for the cars to come through the start-finish area.
There's Piquet right now. He's still got some distance to go because remember he was more than 55 seconds behind as we saw it in the last lap. Nelson Piquet does not know this. He may be getting it on the radio. What a spectacular situation. Only quarter of a lap from the end of this racetrack.
And there is Modena. Now I said Modena went by the race leader Mansell, but Modena was more than a lap down. Here is Piquet. Piquet could win in Montreal for the 3rd time. This is absolutely unbelievable. Senna out early. Then, with less than a lap to go, a matter of yards, it was Nigel Mansell pounding the steering wheel as he went out of the race. Down through the start-finish area comes Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet has won the Grand Prix of Canada. The Molson Grand Prix of Canada, won by Benetton Ford and Nelson Piquet. Here is Riccardo Patrese, very popular Italian driver. A very dejected Frank Williams looks on from the Williams garage. This is absolutely unbelievable. Nelson Piquet, who won here in '82 and again in '84 in a Brabham, has won today in 1991 in a Benetton Ford. Stefano Modena is second. Modena is second. Modena has just gone by in 2nd place. That means Patrese will be 3rd. This is Patrese, and he finishes 3rd, but Stefano Modena went by in 2nd place. Unbelievable. As we look at the start-finish area, what that means is Nigel Mansell still in the car. Now, Jackie, he's less than a quarter of a mile from the finish area, just several hundred yards.
Watch Mansell's emotions as he gets out the car here. He's a man that has peaks and valleys, I'm afraid, Nigel has. This is a tough one for him to take, but here's a remarkable performance coming from the Jordan
Two
team.
Jordans.
Very spectacular. That means that they will finish, in fact, they will finish in 4th and 5th position, which is a very impressive finish for them. Eddie Jordan is going to be congratulated, but look at Nigel, very dejected. His shoulders are down, the agony of defeat.
And you saw Piquet go by. Nigel Mansell had this race won. Less than a quarter of a mile from the finish line, he is out of the race. So Nelson Piquet wins, Stefano Modena finishes 2nd, and Patrese, as you see the look of Piquet, he throws up his arms. Jackie, what is it? Can you tell us the engine?
It looks like it's the transmission again, because he looked underneath the car at the back. I should think something is sheared in the drive mechanism somewhere. It'll either be the gearbox again, which has caused him some inconvenience in the past, or it could be a drive shaft, a universal coupling, something of that ilk. I'm afraid that that's a very big disappointment. He did not deserve that. Nigel Mansell deserved to win this motor race today, but in fact, very impressive.
Nigel Mansell put on quite a show today, but there's Riccardo Patrese, his teammate, stopping to talk to Mansell. There is your race winner, Nelson Piquet. We figured it would be a Brazilian today, but Ayrton Senna, not Nelson Piquet. And there is Riccardo Patrese giving his teammate, his Williams teammate in the Williams Renault, Nigel Mansell, a lift back to the pits area. Let me run down the top 5. Piquet wins, Modena 2nd, Patrese 3rd, Forza Italia, they'll be happy in Toronto, De Cesaris is 4th, and Gasho in the number 5 position. There are the 2 Jordans, Gasho and Andrea De Cesaris, both in the points, but there is the winner of the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada, Nelson Piquet, and coming back to the pits area is Nigel Mansell, the Brazilian flag out. The Mansell car, there's the number 2 car, the Tyrrell Honda of Stefano Modena. But as I was saying, Mansell getting a ride back into the garage area. Let's hang on to this shot if we can. That's Mansell with Patrese, who finished third. Now, Ken Tyrrell Jr., our stats man, even though Mansell didn't finish, he will finish in the number 6 position, so he gets 1 point. But this is certainly not the way he thought of coming in to pit lane.
And I saw one of the Brazilian flags being built up again because I think they had folded it up for the day when Senna dropped out. They had to unfurl it again because it was a Brazilian, in fact, who finished in first position. That driver, of course, being Nelson Piquet. Nigel waving to the crowd. Great disappointment, obviously, by him. Going back to his Williams mechanics there. These are 2 Williams mechanics there that he's speaking to. No doubt going back to tell them what the trouble is. Keep in mind that he's probably already told them that what happened on the radio. There's a 2-way radio. Going in to speak to Frank, going to report to the boss. A very disappointed Frank, in fact.
The final results for the 1991 Molson Grand Prix of Canada. What a stunning surprise here today. Senna out early. Another Brazilian wins, though, in the person of Nelson Piquet. How about Modena second for Tyrrell and Patrese third? We'll return to Montreal right after this.